The conference room at Anderson Publishing in Philadelphia smelled like coffee and broken promises. I sat across from my parents, 24 years old, fresh MBA from Penn State, ready to finally join the family business my grandfather had built 60 years ago. "Emma, we need to discuss your role at the company," my father said, adjusting his glasses in that way he always did before delivering bad news. My mother sat beside him, her face carefully blank. I'd spent the last 6 years preparing for this moment. Undergraduate degree in business, 2 years of internships at publishing houses in New York, then an MBA focused specifically on media and publishing. Every decision had been made with one goal: becoming the next generation leader of Anderson Publishing. "I've been thinking about the operations manager position," I said eagerly. "With my experience in digital transformation, I could help modernize our distribution systems and—" "Actually," my father interrupted, "we've decided to give that position to your brother." The words didn't register at first. "What?" "Ryan will be joining as operations manager next month," my mother said, her voice gentle like that would somehow soften the blow. Ryan, my older brother who dropped out of college twice, spent the last 3 years bartending, and had never shown the slightest interest in publishing. Ryan, who couldn't name 3 authors on our roster. That Ryan. "You're joking," I said, my voice rising despite my attempt to stay professional. "Ryan knows nothing about publishing. He's never even read our quarterly reports. He's been learning," my father said defensively. "We've been discussing the business with him for several months." "Several months? I've been preparing for 6 years." "Emma, don't be dramatic," my mother said. "This isn't about preparation. It's about family dynamics." "What family dynamics?" I demanded. "I'm family too. More qualified family." My father's expression hardened. "Ryan is the oldest. Traditionally, the firstborn inherits leadership responsibilities. That's how it's always been in our family. Grandfather chose you because you were the most qualified, not because of birth order." I shot back. "You were the youngest of 3 siblings. That was different," my father said stiffly. "How?" I pressed. "How is this different?" "Ryan needs stability," my mother interjected. "He's been struggling to find his path. This opportunity will give him purpose." "So you're giving him my job as therapy?" The words came out sharper than I'd intended, but I was beyond caring. "It's not your job," my father said coldly. "It's our company, our decision. Ryan starts next month as operations manager. You can join as a junior editor if you'd like. $35,000 a year. A junior editor. The same position given to fresh college graduates with English degrees. Less responsibility than I'd had as an intern in New York. Less pay than I'd made at my MBA graduate assistantship. You're offering me an entry-level position after an MBA?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "It's a starting point," my father said. "You can work your way up. While Ryan starts in management having never worked a day in publishing." My mother reached across the table. "Sweetheart, you're young. You have time to prove yourself. Ryan needs this now." "I don't need to prove myself," I said, pulling my hand away. "My resume proves me. My education proves me. The only thing I apparently need is a Y chromosome." "That's unfair," my father said sharply. "This has nothing to do with gender. It's about what's best for the family and the company. If it was about what's best for the company, you'd hire the qualified candidate." I stood up, gathering my portfolio that I'd prepared so carefully, full of proposals for modernizing Anderson Publishing's outdated systems. "If you hire Ryan, I won't work here. Don't make ultimatums you can't back up," my father warned. "It's not an ultimatum. It's a fact. I won't watch my unqualified brother destroy the company I love while being paid to do it." I walked toward the door, expecting them to call me back, to reconsider, to choose competence over nepotism. They didn't. My mother called that evening. I let it go to voicemail. "Emma, please don't be rash. Your father and I made a difficult decision. We hope you'll reconsider the junior editor position. Call us back." I didn't call back. Instead, I sat in my small apartment, the one I'd rented specifically to be close to Anderson Publishing's headquarters, and stared at my carefully constructed career plan. Everything had been building toward this moment, toward joining the family business, and eventually leading it into the future. Now that plan was ashes. My best friend from business school, Keisha Williams, called around 9. How'd the meeting go? They gave the job to Ryan, I said flatly. Ryan? Your brother who's never read a book that wasn't assigned in high school. That's the one. Keisha was silent for a moment. What are you going to do? I have no idea. But I'm not working as a junior editor while Ryan plays CEO in training. Good. You're too qualified for that anyway. She paused. Have you thought about looking at other publishing houses? No one's hiring for senior positions right now. The industry is struggling. This was 2016, and traditional publishing was being disrupted by digital platforms and self-publishing. Then maybe look outside traditional publishing, Keisha suggested. Digital platforms, literary agencies, content companies. Your skills are valuable even if your parents can't see it. She was right. Over the next week, I applied to 30 positions across the publishing industry. Literary agencies, digital publishers, content marketing firms, anywhere that valued publishing expertise. Most applications disappeared into automated systems. A few generated polite rejections. Then I got a call from Bennett Literary Agency in New York. Emma, this is Caroline Bennett. I received your application for our agent position. Caroline Bennett was a legend in publishing, representing some of the biggest authors in the industry. Thank you for considering me, Ms. Bennett. Your resume is impressive. Penn State MBA, internships at major houses, strong understanding of both traditional and digital publishing. She paused. But you're young and you've never worked as an agent. Why should I take a chance on you? I prepared for this question. Because the industry is changing faster than most agencies are adapting. You need someone who understands both the traditional model and the digital disruption. Someone who can identify which authors will succeed in the new landscape. Confident, Caroline said, and I couldn't tell if she was impressed or annoyed. Come to New York next Tuesday. Let's talk. The interview was intense. Caroline grilled me for 3 hours about authors, market trends, digital platforms, and publishing economics. If you take this job, you'll work harder than you've ever worked, Caroline said finally. 60-hour weeks, difficult clients, constant rejection. And the starting salary is $40,000, which in New York barely covers rent. I'll take it, I said without hesitation. Don't you want to negotiate? You're offering me a chance to learn from the best agent in the business. That's worth more than salary. Caroline smiled, really smiled for the first time. You start in 2 weeks. I called my parents that night to tell them about the job. My father answered, Emma, we've been worried. You haven't returned any of our calls. I've been busy. I took a job at Bennett Literary Agency in New York. Silence on the other end. You're moving to New York, my mother's voice came through. She must have been on speaker. For how long? Permanently. I'm starting in 2 weeks. This is ridiculous, my father said. You're running away to New York because you didn't get the job you wanted? I'm moving to New York because I got offered a better opportunity than anything at Anderson Publishing, I corrected. You're making a mistake, my father said. The family business is your legacy. No, it's Ryan's legacy now. You made that clear. I kept my voice steady. But that's fine. I'll build my own legacy. I hung up before they could argue further. Moving to New York was chaos. I found a tiny studio apartment in Queens, barely bigger than a closet but affordable on my salary. The commute to Bennett Literary Agency's office in Manhattan took an hour each way. The work was exactly as hard as Caroline had promised. I spent my days reading manuscripts, researching authors, attending pitch meetings, and learning the complex art of negotiation. Caroline was demanding but fair, pushing me to be better while teaching me everything she knew. You have good instincts, she told me after 6 months. You spot talent that others miss. But you're too timid in negotiations. Publishers will walk all over you if you don't fight harder. I learned to fight harder. By my first anniversary at the agency, I'd signed 3 clients of my own, all debut authors. None were bestsellers yet, but they were building careers. You're turning into a real agent, Caroline said during my review. How do you feel about taking on more clients? I'd love that. Caroline slid a file across her desk. This is Marcus Wright, self-published thriller author with decent sales. He's looking for traditional representation to get into bookstores and international markets. I reviewed Marcus's sales data. He'd sold 50,000 copies of his thriller independently, which was impressive for self-publishing. His writing was solid, his marketing was savvy, and his fan base was engaged. I think I can sell this to a major publisher, I said. Then he's yours. Don't screw it up. I didn't screw it up. After 6 months of pitching, I sold Marcus's thriller to a Big 5 publisher for a 3-book deal worth $500,000. It was the biggest sale of my career. More importantly, Marcus's book became a surprise bestseller, hitting the New York Times list and selling another 200,000 copies. Suddenly, I wasn't just an agent. I was an agent who discovered a best-selling author. My phone started ringing with queries from other self-published authors wanting representation. By year 3 at Bennett Literary Agency, I had 15 clients and had generated over $3 million in sales. Caroline made me a full agent with equity in the agency. "You've earned this," she said, signing the partnership papers. "You're building something real here." Meanwhile, Anderson Publishing was struggling. I heard through industry contacts that Ryan had made several costly mistakes. He'd invested heavily in print runs for books that flopped, ignored digital trends, and alienated several of their best-selling authors. Revenue was down 20%. One of those authors who'd left Anderson Publishing reached out to me. "Emma, I heard you're at Bennett now. I need new representation." Jennifer Walsh was a mid-list author with steady sales, exactly the kind of reliable client that built a sustainable career. "I'd love to work with you, Jennifer. But why are you leaving Anderson?" "Your brother is impossible," Jennifer said bluntly. "He doesn't understand publishing, doesn't respect authors, and makes promises he can't keep. The whole company is going downhill." I signed Jennifer and immediately sold her next book to a competitor publisher for double what Anderson had been paying her. My parents called after they heard. "Emma, you're poaching our authors?" My father's voice was sharp with anger. "I'm representing authors who came to me," I corrected. "If they're leaving Anderson Publishing, maybe you should ask why." "This is betrayal," my mother said. "You're deliberately trying to hurt us." "I'm building my career. The fact that it's hurting your poorly run company isn't my problem." The conversation ended badly, as most of our interactions did now. My parents saw my success as an attack on them. I saw it as proof I'd made the right choice. By year 4, I had 25 clients and was generating $5 million annually. I'd become known for discovering overlooked talent, particularly in thriller and mystery genres. Publishers started calling me first when they needed submissions. I also started noticing something interesting. Several of my self-published clients were making more money, staying independent, than they would with traditional deals. The industry was changing, and most publishers hadn't adapted. "Caroline, what if we started our own publishing imprint?" I suggested during one of our strategy meetings. "Focus on digital-first publishing with author-friendly contracts." "That's ambitious," Caroline said. "Also expensive. You'd need at least $500,000 to start properly." "What if I raise the money?" I'd been saving aggressively for 4 years, living cheap in my tiny apartment. I had $80,000 saved. Not enough, but a start. Caroline studied me carefully. "If you raise the money, I'll partner with you. 49% for me, 51% for you. You run it, I provide guidance and agency connections." I spent the next 6 months pitching investors. Most said no. The publishing industry was too risky, too disrupted, too uncertain. Then I met David Park, a venture capitalist who specialized in media companies. "Traditional publishing is dying," David said during our meeting. "Why would I invest in a new imprint?" "Because traditional publishing is dying slowly, and there's money to be made in the transition," I replied. "Authors still want publishers for editing, design, and distribution. They just want better contracts and faster payment. We can offer both." I showed him my projections. A digital-first imprint with lower overhead, higher royalty rates for authors, and faster publication timelines. Focus on thriller and mystery genres where I had connections and expertise. "You'd need $500,000?" David asked. "To start properly. 300,000 could work, but $500,000 is safer." "I'll give you $500,000 for 25% equity," David said. "That values your imprint at $2 million pre-money, which is generous given it doesn't exist yet." It was a fair offer. With David's money and Caroline's partnership, I'd still own 51% and have control. "Deal," I said. Bennett Press launched 6 months later. We started with 5 titles, all from authors I'd represented who were willing to take a chance on a new imprint. The model was simple: 50% royalty rates instead of the industry's standard 15%, digital first with print on demand, and publication within 3 months instead of the traditional 12 to 18 months. Authors loved it. Within a year, we had 30 titles and were generating $700,000 in revenue. Year 2, revenue hit $2 million. By year 3, Bennett Press was profitable and growing fast. We published over 100 titles, several had become bestsellers, and we'd attracted attention from major retailers. I was 31 years old, partner in a successful literary agency, and owner of a growing publishing imprint. Everything I'd built myself, without family money or connections. Meanwhile, Anderson Publishing continued declining. Revenue was down 40% from when I'd left 7 years ago. Several longtime employees had quit. Industry gossip suggested the company was in financial trouble. My parents called occasionally, awkward conversations where they pretended everything was fine while clearly struggling. They never apologized for giving Ryan my job, never acknowledged they'd been wrong. I was working late at the Bennett Press office when Caroline called. "Emma, you need to see something." She forwarded me an article from Publishers Weekly. Anderson Publishing seeks buyer as financial troubles mount. The article detailed my family's company struggling with debt, outdated systems, and declining sales. They were quietly shopping the company to potential buyers. "This is your chance," Caroline said. "For what?" "To buy it. You have the capital, the expertise, and the track record. Anderson Publishing is worth maybe $3 million in its current state. You could acquire it, merge it with Bennett Press, and fix everything your brother broke." The idea was audacious. Buy my family's company out from under them. Show my parents that the daughter they dismissed was now successful enough to acquire their failing business. "That's revenge," I said. "No, that's business," Caroline corrected. Anderson Publishing is a distressed asset with good backlist and infrastructure. It makes strategic sense. She was right. Emotionally complicated, but strategically sound. I spent 2 weeks analyzing Anderson Publishing's finances using public records and industry contacts. The situation was worse than I'd realized. They had $2 million in debt, aging infrastructure, and a backlist they were underexploiting. The company my grandfather had built was on life support. "I want to make an offer," I told David Park. "Not as Emma Anderson, family member. As Emma Anderson, CEO of Bennett Press. Hostile takeover of your family's company." David smiled. "That's cold. I respect it." We structured an offer through a shell corporation to keep my identity hidden initially. $2.5 million for 100% of Anderson Publishing, including all debt obligations. Below market value, but fair given their financial situation. The offer went through their bankruptcy attorney, who was already working with the family to find buyers. 2 weeks later, I received a response. They wanted to negotiate, but they were interested. I revealed my identity in the second meeting, walking into Anderson Publishing's conference room where my parents and their attorneys waited. The look on my father's face when he recognized me was priceless. "Emma!" My mother's voice was faint. "What are you doing here?" "I'm the buyer," I said calmly, taking a seat. "Bennett Press is offering to acquire Anderson Publishing." "This is a joke," my father said, but his voice lacked conviction. "No joke. Here's our offer." I slid the documents across the table. $2.5 million for full acquisition. We assume all debt, and existing management exits within 60 days. My father's attorney, a man named Harold Shun who'd worked with the family for decades, read through the offer carefully. "This is a legitimate offer," Harold said quietly. "Actually quite fair given the circumstances. I'm not selling my company to my daughter," my father said flatly. "It's either Bennett Press or bankruptcy," Harold replied. "Those are your options. Anderson Publishing has maybe 6 months before creditors force liquidation. There must be other buyers," my mother said desperately. "There were 3 other inquiries," Harold said. "All lowball offers around $1.5 million with no debt assumption. Emma's offer is the best you'll get." I watched my parents process this information. 7 years after they dismissed me as unqualified, I was now the only thing standing between them and complete failure. "Can we have time to discuss this privately?" my father asked. You have 48 hours, I said. After that, the offer expires. I left them in that conference room, the same room where they told me Ryan was getting my job. The symmetry wasn't lost on anyone. Keisha called me that night. I heard you made an offer on Anderson Publishing. That's savage. That's business, I replied, echoing Caroline's words. Do you think they'll accept? They don't have a choice. The answer came in 36 hours. Through Harold, not directly. They'll accept your offer with 3 conditions. First, you retain the Anderson Publishing name. Second, you keep at least 50% of current staff. Third, you hire Ryan in some capacity. I laughed at the third condition. Absolutely not. Ryan is the reason the company is failing. I told them you'd say that, Harold replied. They're desperate. They'll accept without the third condition if you agree to the first 2. Done. Send the acceptance letter. The acquisition closed in 60 days. Bennett Press acquired Anderson Publishing for $2.5 million, paid through a combination of Bennett Press profits, David Park's investment fund, and a small business loan. Suddenly, I owned my family's publishing house. The first thing I did was evaluate the staff. Anderson Publishing had 35 employees, most of whom were competent but working with outdated systems and poor management. I kept 28, letting go of those who couldn't adapt to modern publishing practices. The second thing was to audit their backlist. They had over 300 titles, many underexploited or out of print. I put together a team to digitize everything and relaunch backlist titles through Bennett Press's digital platform. Third was infrastructure. Anderson Publishing's office was expensive and half-empty. I moved operations into Bennett Press's larger space, cutting rent costs by 60%. Within 3 months, I'd cut costs by $500,000 annually while increasing digital revenue. The turnaround was faster than I had projected. By month 6, Anderson Publishing was cash flow positive for the first time in 3 years. My parents didn't contact me during this period. I heard through Harold that they were living off the acquisition proceeds, my father having essentially retired in disgrace. Then one afternoon, my father showed up at the office unannounced. Security called before letting him up. Your father is here. Should we send him away? No, I said, curious despite myself. Send him up. He looked older than I remembered, grayer, diminished somehow. Success had always made my father larger than life. Failure had shrunk him. Emma, he said, standing in my doorway. Thank you for seeing me. I'm busy. What do you need? I wanted to see what you'd done with the company. He looked around my office, noting the awards on the wall, the framed book covers from Bennett Press bestsellers. May I sit? I gestured to the chair across from my desk. He sat, looking uncomfortable in a way I'd never seen. You saved Anderson Publishing, he said finally. I modernized it. There's a difference. Your grandfather would be proud, he said quietly. Grandfather would be proud that his legacy didn't die because of poor management, I corrected. He wouldn't be proud that it came to this. My father flinched. I made mistakes. With the company, with Ryan, with you. This was closer to an apology than I'd ever gotten. Yes, you did. I underestimated you, he continued. I thought Ryan needed the opportunity more, that you would land on your feet regardless. I was wrong. You weren't just wrong about me landing on my feet, I said. You were wrong about Ryan being capable. You chose sentiment over competence and nearly destroyed grandfather's legacy. I know, my father said. Watching you rebuild what I destroyed, it's made me face some uncomfortable truths. Like what? Like the fact that you were always the better choice. That gender and birth order shouldn't have mattered. That I let my own biases blind me to my daughter's capabilities. It was the closest thing to a real apology I'd gotten. But 7 years of hurt couldn't be erased by one conversation. Why are you really here? I asked. To apologize. To tell you I was wrong. And to ask if there's any chance at rebuilding our relationship. I don't know, I said honestly. 7 years ago, I needed your support and belief. You gave it to Ryan instead. I had to build everything alone. And you did, my father said. Better than I ever did. Yes, I did. And that success doesn't require your approval anymore. He nodded slowly, standing to leave. I understand. But Emma, thank you for saving the company, even after how I treated you. After he left, I sat for a long time thinking about family, legacy, and forgiveness. My assistant knocked. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said. "Just processing." Anderson Publishing's revival continued. By the end of year one under Bennett Press ownership, revenue had doubled. We'd relaunched 50 backlist titles successfully, signed 10 new authors, and streamlined operations completely. Industry publications noticed. Bennett Press revitalizes Anderson Publishing through digital innovation, read one headline. The article detailed the turnaround, crediting modern management and digital-first strategy. My mother called after the article appeared. "Emma, I read about Anderson Publishing's success. What you've accomplished is remarkable." "Thank you," I said cautiously. "Could we meet? Your father and I would like to talk with you." We met at a neutral restaurant, the same one where we'd had countless family dinners when I was growing up. My parents looked smaller somehow, less sure of themselves. "We've talked a lot over the past year," my mother began. "About our mistakes, about how we handled things with you and Ryan." "And?" I prompted. "We're deeply sorry," my father said, "for choosing Ryan over you, for not recognizing your capabilities, for letting our old-fashioned beliefs about family and gender cloud our judgment. We were wrong about everything," my mother added. "You were the right choice all along. Ryan knew it, we knew it, but pride kept us from admitting it." "Where's Ryan now?" I asked. I deliberately not kept track. "Working as a sales manager at a software company," my father said. "He's actually doing well. Turns out he's good at sales, just not at running a publishing house." "So it worked out for him," I observed. "But it destroyed what you spent decades building." "Which you rebuilt," my mother said. "Better than it ever was." "I didn't rebuild it for you," I said bluntly. "I rebuilt it because it was a good business opportunity and because I couldn't stand watching grandfather's legacy die." "We understand," my father said, "and we don't expect forgiveness or reconciliation. We just wanted you to know that we acknowledge our mistakes." It was more than I'd expected. Not enough to erase 7 years of hurt, but something. "I appreciate the apology," I said carefully. "I don't know what our relationship looks like going forward, but I'm willing to try figuring it out." My mother's eyes filled with tears. "That's more than we deserve." Over the following months, we rebuilt our relationship slowly. Coffee meetings once a month, brief phone calls, gradually increasing contact. It wasn't the relationship we'd had before. It was something different, built on honesty rather than assumed roles. Meanwhile, Bennett Press continued growing. We'd become a significant player in thriller and mystery publishing, known for author-friendly contracts and quick turnaround times. In year 8 after leaving Anderson Publishing, I was featured in Forbes' 30 Under 30 list for media. The article detailed my journey from rejected family employee to successful publisher who'd saved her family's company. "Emma Anderson represents the future of publishing," the article concluded. "By focusing on author relationships and digital innovation, she's built a company that thrives where traditional publishers struggle." The publicity brought new opportunities. Larger publishers started inquiring about partnerships. Major retailers wanted exclusive deals. A media company offered to buy Bennett Press outright for $20 million. I was 32 years old and had multiple paths forward. "What are you thinking?" Caroline asked during a strategy meeting. "Are you tempted by the acquisition offer?" "No," I said. "We've built something special. Something that treats authors fairly and adapts to market changes. I'm not selling that to a corporation that'll destroy what makes it work." "Good answer," David Park said. "He'd become more than an investor, serving as an advisor and board member. But we should think about next steps. How do we scale without losing what makes us special?" That was the question. We spent 6 months developing a plan. Bennett Press would remain independent but expand through strategic partnerships and acquisitions of smaller independent publishers. Within 2 years, we'd grown to 15 imprints under the Bennett Press umbrella, each focused on specific genres and author relationships. Revenue hit $30 million annually. Anderson Publishing, now fully integrated into Bennett Press operations, was generating $5 million of that. The company my parents had almost destroyed was thriving as part of my larger vision. My relationship with my parents continued improving slowly. We'd never be as close as before the break, but we'd found a new normal built on mutual respect rather than parental authority. Ryan and I even had coffee occasionally. He was doing well in sales, had gotten married, seemed genuinely happy in a career that suited his strengths. I knew I wasn't right for publishing, he admitted during one meeting. But Dad was so insistent, and I didn't know how to say no. Why didn't you? I asked, curious rather than angry. Because saying no meant admitting I wasn't as good as you, Ryan said. Pride, I guess. Stupid pride that nearly destroyed the family business. At least you can admit it now, I said. Took me years to realize Dad set me up to fail, Ryan replied. Gave me a job I wasn't qualified for, then blamed me when I struggled. It was the most honest conversation we'd ever had. By year 10, Bennett Press had become one of the largest independent publishers in the country. We represented over 300 authors, published 200 books annually, and generated $50 million in revenue. I'd personally discovered 15 New York Times best-selling authors. Industry magazines called me one of publishing's most influential figures under 40. The company that had rejected me as unqualified now used my success story in their recruitment materials, conveniently omitting the part where they'd given my job to my brother. One afternoon, I was invited to speak at a publishing conference in Philadelphia. The keynote address was about the future of independent publishing. Standing on that stage, looking out at hundreds of industry professionals, I thought about the journey. From the conference room where my parents had dismissed me, to the tiny apartment in Queens, to this moment of complete professional validation. The publishing industry is built on gatekeepers, I told the audience. Agents who decide which authors get represented, publishers who decide which books get published, retailers who decide which titles get promoted. I paused. But the future belongs to those who lower barriers instead of raising them, who recognize talent regardless of traditional credentials, who understand that the best ideas often come from unexpected places. After the speech, several people approached with questions and opportunities. One was James Mitchell, the current CEO of the parent company that owned several major publishers. Ms. Anderson, I was impressed by your speech. Would you be interested in discussing a partnership between Bennett Press and our publishing group? What kind of partnership? I asked. We're looking to acquire independent publishers who are innovating successfully, James said. Bennett Press would be a flagship acquisition. We're prepared to offer substantial terms. I'm not interested in selling, I said immediately. Not selling. Partnering. You'd maintain operational control. We'd provide distribution and capital for expansion. You could scale Bennett Press nationally while keeping your independence. It was intriguing but required serious consideration. Over the next 3 months, I negotiated with James's team. The final deal gave Bennett Press access to major retailers and distribution networks while maintaining editorial independence and author-friendly practices. In exchange, the parent company acquired 30% equity for $15 million. The deal valued Bennett Press at $50 million. I'd built a $50 million company in 10 years, starting from nothing. The announcement made national publishing news. Bennett Press partners with major publisher in groundbreaking deal. My parents called to congratulate me. Emma, we saw the announcement. $50 million. That's incredible. Thank you, I said. We're proud of you, my father said, his voice thick with emotion. We should have been proud 10 years ago when you needed it, I replied. But I appreciate hearing it now. We failed you, my mother said. We let outdated beliefs and favoritism cloud our judgment. You succeeded despite us, not because of us. I succeeded because you forced me to, I corrected. If you'd given me that job, I'd probably still be working at Anderson Publishing making $50,000 a year. Instead, I built something worth $50 million. Do you regret how it happened? My father asked. It was a complicated question. The rejection had hurt deeply, but it had also pushed me to build something bigger than I'd imagined. I regret that my family didn't believe in me, I said slowly. I regret the years of distance and hurt, but I don't regret building Bennett Press. That's mine in a way Anderson Publishing never could have been. We understand, my mother said. And we're grateful you saved the company despite everything. The partnership with the major publisher opened new opportunities. Within a year, Bennett Press expanded into audiobooks, international markets, and film adaptation rights. We launched a new imprint focused on diverse voices, something traditional publishers talked about but rarely funded properly. By year 12, Bennett Press was generating $80 million annually and was one of the most respected names in independent publishing. I'd personally negotiated over $200 million in deals and helped launch the careers of dozens of successful authors. Industry awards followed: Publisher of the Year, Innovation in Publishing, Champion of Author Rights. Each award felt like vindication for that rejected 24-year-old who'd been told she wasn't qualified. One evening, I was working late when my assistant knocked. "Your brother is here. Ryan. Should I send him up?" "Yes," I said, curious. Ryan appeared in my doorway looking nervous. "Hey, Emma. Sorry to drop by unannounced. Everything okay?" "Yeah, just wanted to talk if you have a minute." He sat down, fidgeting with his phone. "I've been thinking a lot about what happened 10 years ago. About Dad giving me your job, about how badly I failed, about you having to save the company." "That was a long time ago," I said. "I know, but I never properly apologized. I was weak. I knew you were more qualified, knew I wasn't ready, but I took the job anyway because Dad wanted me to." Ryan looked at me directly. "I'm sorry for taking what should have been yours, for failing so badly you had to fix it, for not standing up for you when it mattered. It was the apology I'd needed years ago. Getting it now felt almost anticlimactic." "I appreciate you saying that," I said. "Dad set us both up in a bad situation. I'm glad you found something that works for you." "I make a fraction of what you make," Ryan said with a self-deprecating smile. "But I'm good at my job. My wife doesn't hate me, and I sleep at night. That's worth more than I thought it would be. That's success by the measures that actually matter," I said. We talked for another hour, really talked for the first time in years. When he left, I felt like we'd finally put the past behind us. The following week, my father called with an unexpected request. "Emma, your mother and I are thinking about writing a book. About our mistakes in business and parenting, about what we learned watching you succeed." "That's ambitious," I said carefully. "Would you consider publishing it? Through Anderson Publishing, technically your company now." I thought about it. A book by my parents acknowledging their mistakes, published by the company I'd saved. "Send me a proposal. If it's good, we'll consider it." The proposal arrived 2 weeks later. It was honest, almost painful in its self-examination. My parents detailed their decision to give Ryan my job, the justifications they told themselves, watching the company decline, and finally seeing me succeed beyond their wildest expectations. "We thought we were protecting our son," the proposal read. "Instead, we nearly destroyed our daughter and our legacy. This is the story of how pride and outdated beliefs cost us everything, and how our daughter's strength saved what we couldn't." It was raw and real. I called them. "I'll publish it, but editorial control stays with my team. No family favoritism, no softening hard truths." "Agreed," my father said immediately. The book, titled The Cost of Pride, A Family's Reckoning with Failure and Redemption, was published by Anderson Publishing 8 months later. It became a surprise bestseller, resonating with families dealing with similar conflicts. My parents did a book tour, speaking honestly about their mistakes. I attended their Philadelphia launch event, watching from the back as they answered questions about favoring sons over daughters, about fear of change, about learning too late what really mattered. After the event, we went to dinner, just the three of us. "Thank you for publishing our book," my mother said. "Even after everything, you gave us a platform to tell our story." "It's a good book," I said simply, "and it might help other families avoid the same mistakes." "Has publishing it changed how you feel about us?" my father asked. "About what happened?" I thought carefully before answering. "I've forgiven you. Not because you apologized or wrote a book, but because holding on to anger was hurting me more than you. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. What happened shaped who I became." "We know," my mother said, "and we're grateful for the second chance, even if we don't deserve it." The relationship we'd rebuilt over 12 years wasn't perfect. Some wounds heal but leave scars. But we'd found something functional, built on honesty rather than obligation. That same year, Bennett Press celebrated its 15th anniversary. We'd published over 2,000 books, represented 500 authors, and generated over $100 million in cumulative revenue. The company I'd started with $500,000 of investment was now valued at over $100 million. I was 37 years old, CEO of one of the largest independent publishers in the country, and had personally discovered or developed 30 best-selling authors. Everything I'd built without family help, without the job I'd been denied, without the easy path my parents had given my brother. Standing at the anniversary celebration, surrounded by authors whose careers I'd helped build and employees who'd grown with the company, I thought about that conference room meeting 15 years earlier. My parents telling me I wasn't qualified, offering me an entry-level position after an MBA, giving my dream job to my unqualified brother. At the time, it had felt like the end of everything. Now I could see it for what it really was, the beginning. Because they'd forced me to build my own path, I'd built something bigger than their failing company. I'd built something that reflected my values, my vision, and my understanding of where publishing was heading. I'd built something that was entirely, completely mine. And then, years later, I bought their company, not out of revenge, but because it was good business, because I could save what they'd nearly destroyed, because I was finally, undeniably, the person they should have trusted from the beginning. My father approached during the celebration. 15 years, from rejected applicant to this. It's remarkable, Emma. It wasn't remarkable, I said. It was necessary. You didn't believe I could do it, so I had to prove it. We were wrong, he said simply. About everything. Yes, I agreed. You were. But standing there, looking at everything I'd built from nothing, I realized something. Being wrong about me was the best thing they'd ever done. Because proving them wrong had required building something better than anything they could have given me. The job they denied me would have been a ceiling. Building my own company has been limitless. And now, 15 years later, I own both. The company they built and the empire I'd created. All because they told me I wasn't good enough. Sometimes the greatest gift is someone forcing you to prove yourself. Not to them, to yourself. And I'd proven it. Spectacularly.